phone. Bad
Oh,
phone.
yeah.
Oh, I should turn mine off because it's...
Hey, Steve, how many times have I had mine on, and how many times have you had yours?
Mine is off.
Well,
Mine is
this
off.
time. This
if
time
I put
yours
it
is
on
on.
airplane mode, it won't ring, correct?
Right.
Mine's
Just remember to take
a
it off when you're
listener
done.
phone.
Yeah. Well, you can just shut it down. I have to. I know what I want to do because I am banned currently from streaming.
Facebook sucks.
On old Facebook there. Yeah.
I think because I'm associated with you, Chris, they had to find something to ban me from, so I'm banned from Marketplace. And I didn't do anything. It's guilt by association.
I don't understand, and I think it's because of the show we did last week. They
don't tell you why, because they told me why I was banned.
No.
In some instances they do, in some instances they don't.
Because they asked me if I thought that was correct, and I said no. I'm going to.
Well, they've asked me if I think it's correct, but they won't tell me what it is that I'm disagreeing with. That's the funny part. Welcome to dealing with Facebook.
Somebody probably reported a video or some bullshit.
What I'm thinking is the gang stalking video. Somebody reported it because it was shared everywhere. By one of our listeners.
I think it was horrible.
So
Ingmar's a listener for sure.
Yeah. So and I know that because I could see her shares. So she shared it to a lot of groups, and I think somebody reported it, and that's why I've been banned from streaming.
See what you've done, Ingmar?
That's right, Ingmar. No, I don't care. I can still broadcast to YouTube and to Twitch, so it's not like it's there's still avenues. So let's get right into it, Steve, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're about to witness the strength of creep knowledge.
Good evening. Welcome to the Fortean Slip. This is episode, I don't even know, 170 something. I totally forgot.
So you know what you should do, Chris?
What?
At the title up there, you should put the episode number. You should put the episode number first.
Normally what I do
you can
is
see it.
I put it as like a scroll along the bottom of the screen, so so you can tell. But I didn't do it this time, Steve. I've been distracted by our wonderful guest. Oh, she's over here, Melanie Kirchdorfer, back on our show. We had her on. When did we have you on? It was a while ago now.
I think it was back in August or September.
Yeah, it was. I know it was after the Unsolved Mysteries episode aired on Netflix,
which was July.
Yeah, because I had gotten in touch with Tom because I noticed that him and I were friends on Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, would you like to do the show?" And he was like, "Yeah, can I bring on Melanie with me?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So we had you both on, and I wanted to do a more of an in-depth show with you, so that's why I asked you to come back on tonight. So
thank you for having me.
A chance to talk to you. We got a few things that we got to do before we get into that. So, Steve, anything going on with you this week? No, you're good.
Nothing. Oh yeah, just family drama. That's it.
Oh yeah.
My children want to kill each other. You know that kind of thing.
Our lovely puppy pissed on our bed again. Because actually, this time I don't know. The other time I know it was her because she did it right in front of me. And I know she did it because she was pissed. And that's okay to some degree. Like, you got to let some of that shit go when it comes to puppies. This last time, I don't know if it was her or her mother. And it's like a Scooby-Doo mystery at this point. But I'm willing to just let it go because I love my dogs, but whatever. It is what it is. I did, however, today, Steve, I didn't get a chance to tell you before the show. So, of course, you remember all of my lovely work, fun time, happy hour. Yeah. Did I tell you that the gentleman returned after
believe he returned one time, and then you said something about getting an order of restraint or something.
Yeah. So he came back to the store, came in, threw a little fit, swore and cursed at me, yelling and screaming in the store. And then he left and he spit on my car.
Yes.
So I called the police and I asked for I guess all you can get is a no trespass order.
Oh, I thought you asked for a special victims unit or something.
Yeah, I asked for special victims unit. Could you send down Stabler? I think I was touched in my special place. No. I guess all you can get is a no trespass order. So that's what I got for right now. And I went down to the courthouse to file a protection order. Because obviously if the dude's going to come back after he's been let go and spit on my car and throw a fit in the store, then, I'm going to take care of it. So I went down to file it, and they didn't tell me anything about it. When you call the courthouse, they tell you, oh yeah, no, this is something that we will let you come in right now and do. You don't have to wait. You can come right to the courthouse. This is an important matter. And I'm like, okay. So I went down, and I went to the wrong courthouse the first time. So I drove like an hour out of my way to go to the wrong courthouse. Then I went to the correct courthouse, and they're like, it'll be $55 to file this. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, my taxes pay your salary. Like, so she gives me this thing to waive the fee, the $55 fee. So I fill out all the paperwork. I go back to her window, and then she says, okay, so I have to send this to the judge, and you might want to wait, because if you're not here, the judge could dismiss the case. And I'm like, how long is that going to be? And she's like, it could be up to 2 hours. Now I've got to pick up my son in like an hour. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I'm like, can I just take the paperwork and come back? So I have to go back tomorrow morning at some point and file the paperwork and wait.
Do they serve him if it goes through?
If it goes through, yes. And like literally, he's been texting one of the people at work, and this is what he's asking: is Christina there?
So he's like a stalker.
He's like a fucking piece of shit, is what he is.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been dealing with. So tomorrow, I'm gonna go down and file that. And fuck him.
Dude took his. I don't know he was an ass before that, but I mean, let it go. You got fired. Move on.
Yeah, just go. Just you don't need to come there. You don't. Just leave.
What are you going to prove?
So, anywho, so we can get right into it with Melanie. Steve, do you have any news tonight?
Oh yeah. Let me put my reading spectacles on.
Oh Jesus, you old man.
All right, that's better.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
EastBayTimes.com. Don't know where that's from, but it's a story.
It sounds like a reputable place.
Yes. Hulu is going to have a new Bigfoot show.
Oh.
Yeah. Hulu's Sasquatch series features Humboldt County, cannabis, and Bigfoot. So you got all the good stuff right there.
And Bigfoot all wrapped up into one. I'm in. I mean, I might be able to watch this show.
Sasquatch, a docuseries that premiered at SXSW, whatever that is, last week, features two of Humboldt County's most talked about exports, cannabis and Bigfoot. Hulu, which plans to launch the 3-part series on the cannabis holiday, April 20th. I see what they did there. Builds it like this. While visiting a pot farm in Northern California in 1993, investigative journalist David Holthouse heard a story that still haunts him. On a nearby farm, 3 men were torn limb from limb in a savage Bigfoot attack. Okay, this is already starting to sound shady.
Yeah.
Sasquatch follows David as he revisits the redwoods 25 years later in search of any evidence that might lead to the truth of what happened that night. As he pulls at the threads of this story, he'll be taken down paths that's far more terrifying than anyone would have imagined. Sounds horrible.
You're not going to check out Weed Squatch?
Would I watch it? Yeah, I watch all that kind of garbage. Well,
I would watch it.
Yeah, I don't.
I'd check it out just to see. I mean, anything could be entertaining.
Old House says, I'm venturing into dangerous territory with all these hippies listening to the Grateful Dead, but packing an AR-15. I don't know what that means, but he's afraid. Aren't hippies supposed to be peace-loving?
Well, you'd think.
The old hippies were. The new ones,
The old
so
ones,
much.
not today. It can be
No.
pretty sketchy, I think, up there now.
Ooh,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is a good one.
There's a whole documentary on what's it called, Murder Mountain. About
Yeah,
the
did you see
growers up
that?
there.
That was
Yeah,
scary.
I did not see it.
you don't see anything, Steve.
If it's not on YouTube.
No. Okay.
FoxNews.com. Louisiana priest, 2 dominatrices are charged with vandalism after altar threesome. I don't know what that means, but a former Louisiana,
Priest and a dominatrix.
oh yes, 2 of them. A former Louisiana priest and 2 dominatrices were slapped with vandalism charges for having sex atop a church altar. They're going straight to hell. This happened in September of last year, the report said. Travis Clark, 37, and the 2 women were initially charged by police with obscenity following the alleged tryst last September inside St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church in Pearl River.
He put the Peter somewhere.
But the St. Tammany Parish District Attorney's Office on Friday announced lesser charges for the unholy trinity, who were busted after a passerby saw them through a church window. They didn't even close the windows. The 2 dominatrices, Mindy Dixon, Mindy Dixon, 41, and 28-year-old Melissa Cheng, were wearing corsets and high heels during the threesome, which was being recorded, according to court documents.
Oh,
I got to keep reading. Sex toys and stage lights were recovered at the scene by police, along with recording devices.
Oh God. What are you doing, dude? If you're a priest, what are you doing? Oh well.
Yeah. That's interesting. So from Reuters.
Yeah, let's get to the third one.
There's a new plague of mice, and it's in Australia. Australia.
I heard about that.
Yeah. Some rural communities in the Australian state of New South Wales are suffering their worst plague of mice in decades after a bumper grain harvest, local people say. Eyewitness video obtained by Reuters showed thousands of tiny rodents swarming around a farm in the town of Gilgandra. At night, the ground is just moving with thousands and thousands of mice just running around, farmer Ron McKay told the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Supermarkets are.
I guess they're hoping that the rain fucking wipes them out. Like there's so many of them. They're like people are waking up to them in their houses. They're waking up to like droppings all over their fucking bed, shit, and like floors like moving and stuff. And they're like super hopeful that it will flood and kill them because it's so bad right now.
Yeah. I think I would have to either move or commit suicide. I was there. I don't
There's
think
a
I
lot
could.
of
Everything
there's
I
a
hear,
lot of video, and it's really disturbing to watch the video. Like you hear plague and you think, oh, okay, they got a lot of mice. Like you watch these videos, oh my gosh, I would burn my house down.
Oh, I haven't seen any of the video.
I'm not going to watch any of the video.
It's been on mainstream news.
I don't know if it's been on the mainstream news. I've seen it a lot though lately. But Australia is just a place where everything wants to hurt you. Like everything. Why would
My
you
son
live there?
lives in Melbourne.
That poor man.
Yeah, I heard from him the week before last, but I haven't talked to him this week. I have to call him, WhatsApp him.
I don't know. I don't know if it's happening in Melbourne, but I know
New South Wales is where it's.
Yeah. I think it's more rural type of areas, but it's
Okay.
Say,
crazy.
supermarkets have to store food in sealed containers, and at least 3 patients at local hospitals have been bitten. Only 3?
Wow. You
I'm
think
sure there's
more?
more. They say you can imagine that every time you open a cupboard, every time you go to your pantry, there are mice present, said Steve Henry, a rodent expert. And they're eating into your food containers, they're fouling your clean linen, and they're running across your bed at night. That's the part that would get me.
Oh,
Frank Smith says his brother lives in Melbourne too.
Anyway, that is the news.
The news. Yee-hoo. I like your shirt, Steve. Katie said the same thing.
I'm done peopling.
That's
I think
nice.
Melanie
I like
said that too.
Yeah.
It's you can get this. It's hard to find at Walmart, but it's there.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So to get right into it, like we had said at the beginning of the show, we had Melanie on after I had seen the Unsolved Mysteries Berkshires UFO episode, and I was so enthralled with that episode because I don't know how, with all the time I've spent looking into UFO shit and doing this show, that I never came across the Berkshires UFO and incident. And the amazing thing is that Steve, who also has spent a lot of time looking into UFOs, and I mean, especially UFOs, Steve had never heard about it either. We're now pretty sure that Steve and I come from an alternate universe where that didn't happen. And now we're getting to experience. I don't look, but seriously, I don't know how I managed to miss this thing, because I'm an insane, like, when it comes to this type of stuff, if I see something, I'll dig into it. I remember when I came across the John Teeter story. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, Melanie. It's a story. It's a strange story of this gentleman that appeared on the internet back in the early 2000s and claimed he was a time traveler. And he made all these really strange predictions, some of which came true. A lot of them were really far-fetched, but some of the things that he was talking about were really cool too. So when I found this thing, I like delved right in. Like, I spent like a whole week like reading the blog, all of his blog posts, or all of his posts online that people had collected onto this blog. I listened to all kinds of podcasts about him. And by the time I was done, I was just like so full of information about that. And eventually it all broke down and I realized that it was a big bag of shit. But the reason I was so surprised, like, I've like I said, I've been doing this show for, it's been almost 8 years now. And I've looked into tons of UFO cases, Bigfoot cases, et cetera, et cetera. I never came across this thing, and it's right in my backyard. Like, I grew up in Maine, so it's like literally like just south of me, a couple hours. And so when I heard about it, I was just blown away. And then, of course, I hear yours and Tom's story, and I realized that Tom and I were friends on Facebook. So I messaged him, and he invited you on, which was great. And then we got to hear your story, and I'll tell you, and I told you this before the show, and I think I said it at the beginning of the show, we were really enthralled with your story, simply because of the way it was handled by your family, like, and your reaction to it. So I guess my first question tonight would be, what was it that made you decide to talk about it if your family covered it up for so long?
well, basically, my mom called me up one day and told me to go to the Historical Society, that I needed to contact them to tell them what had happened to us, because apparently Tom Warner wanted my brother to do the Netflix show, but my brother decided not to do it. towards the end, when it was supposed to come to be. He was supposed to meet with the people from not Netflix, but Unsolved Mysteries, and he didn't come through. I didn't know anything about what was going on because they kept all this information from me. They told me that it was all in my head, that it had never happened. And according to Tom Reed, my parents, my mother and my brother had been doing radio shows back in 2013 because Tom did a radio show with them up in Oregon. I didn't know anything about it. They had told me that this was all in my head. So they had been lying to me all along since I was a child.
And while they're telling you that this is all just in your head, they're going around and talking about it on radio shows.
Yeah. I've always been the one that has been the outcast in the family. My sister and I are really, really close, but my brother has always been my mother's golden child.
I think we're a panel full of outcasts here. So you're all right.
I'm the outcast, definitely.
Do you think because they kept it from you at the beginning or told you that it was just in your imagination from the beginning, that even though they were out there doing podcasts or interviews and stuff, that they just had to keep up the appearance of that? Or do you think was there some other motivation?
I have no idea. I don't know for a fact that they were doing them, but I don't see why Tom Reed would lie to me about it. I really like Tom.
It should be easy to find it.
Yeah, you should be able to find it.
Easy to find those.
I mean, Tom would know who the person was. It was a woman, he said. And why would he lie to me about it? He has no reason to lie to me about it. I trust Tom Reed.
I mean, I'm not saying that you need to check up on it, but like I said, it would be easy to check up on, to just look up the year, whoever the radio show was. But I'd be interested to see what it was they were saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I considering that the whole thing was hush hush with you. Oh no, you just imagined this, but then they're going around and talking about that. That's the stuff that baffles me. I mean,
yeah.
I'm really, like, I think that's the part of your story that really got to me, is this whole idea that your family experienced this thing and then they hushed you in particular. Like, and I don't understand it. So do you think that there's a particular reason why?
I have no idea, but it's become a big joke now because, well, when I think it's Terry Wise is his name from Unsolved Mysteries, when he called me and he was talking to me about it, he had told me how my brother, he flew in to meet with my brother and my brother's wife, who at the time, the dog just pulled the cord out, who at the time were supposed to meet with them, and then they backed out the day that he flew in.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently Tom Warner had said that they wanted to get paid to do the documentary. And you don't get paid to do a documentary. If people were going to get paid to do a documentary, everybody and their brother would be coming out of the woodwork to do a documentary. It would be
I mean, if you're
a
a big name, then yeah, you could get paid to do a documentary. But if you're just everyday person, you're not getting paid to do a documentary. Yeah.
Exactly. So then my mother called me and she asked me to go down and tell what happened to the Historical Society. And I said, what are you talking about? You told me that this never happened. Now you're telling me it did happen? I said, you told me that what we saw was a shooting star. And I always knew that it wasn't a shooting star because I had witnessed this little gray man that would come in my room as a child. And this had happened to me even as a 2-year-old. I had a weird experience that she told me that I had done something weird as a 2-year-old, which I'll tell you about later. But all these bizarre things had happened to me as a child. So I knew that these things had been going on. And I think I had told you I'd even been punished and locked in the basement for telling my mother about this little gray man as a child. And my sister saw it. So my sister was a witness to this. And Janie had said to my mother, because my mother has said to my sister, why didn't we believe Melanie before the 1969 incident? after
Right.
Netflix had come out. And Janie said, I don't know, Mom. We kept telling you what was happening. And Dad even put the locks on the door, the attic door, because the attic door was in our bedroom. And Dad clearly knew something was going on, but she did not want to believe her. But I saw it too. And they just didn't want to believe that something was going on. Now, there was a girl that lived 2 streets over from us along the same Housatonic River. I found out from her, and there's no way she could have known this because it wasn't on Netflix. I found out from her the same thing was happening to her sister. She was seeing these little men that were coming into her room, and her parents believed her. So they moved out of Great Barrington. They moved into Stockbridge, and it stopped because her parents believed her. I'm not the only one. We are not the only ones that this was happening to in Great Barrington.
And I don't think that you were either. And based on the story, I mean, as I see it, this happened to a lot of people. I mean, just based on the story that I heard, I mean, forget about, all the side stuff with you or whoever. Based on what I saw on that show, the number of people that had this very similar experience, and I won't say they had the same experience because, everybody has an individual experience, but that's a lot. I mean,
There's
that's a
a lot.
lot of people to have had the same, or like, I won't say the same, a very similar experience, with, seeing something, some missing time, maybe like an abduction or something, maybe not. But just the fact that there are all these very similar key points in the story when the people see this thing, so I'm very fascinated by it. So do you have, I mean, are you still baffled by it, or do you have any type of
I'm very
insight?
baffled by it.
Not by like your family, but by the incident itself.
Absolutely. In fact, Tom Reed and I are researching it still. And Jennifer from the Berkshire Eagle, she did a lot of research, and we have found out since then that in July, I believe it was July 16th of 1969, they left the moon disk up on the moon, inviting them or whoever it was to come down.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when they had the first launch up onto the moon. And then they came down. And I mean, that happened in September. But don't forget, we had General Electric here, the Sprague Company. We had all these things going on right here in the Berkshires, all these different companies. And Tom Reed, he's better at telling you all the scientific places that went on.
Mm-hmm.
He can fill you in because he's so good at it. But at the same time, I'm really good. I've been doing the research on all the paranormal with the First Nations people, because King Philip's War also took place along the Housatonic River.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 3 elements that could have been taking place here. You've got the government that could have been doing stuff here with General Electric and the Sprague Company, with UFOs, ufology, all of that going on. And then you got the paranormal situation with King Philip's War that took place, and the field, that field in your background, that's full of artifacts. First Nations people, artifacts. I know people that have pulled, and I probably shouldn't say it because I don't want people going there digging, because they've asked people not to, but arrowheads are found there. There are tons of artifacts right there. That's like a portal there. And people see UFOs there all the time.
So that was a question I was going to have. Is this stuff still going on there?
Oh, yeah.
Apparently,
It goes on
it is.
all the time. And in fact, I never could watch any of these shows before. When my husband would watch them, I'm able to, thanks to my husband and Tom Reed, I'm finally able to watch any of these movies or shows. But because nobody would believe me as a child or a young adult, but now finally I have people that believe me what happened. I can finally watch these. I was watching, I think it was the Alaska Triangle on Hulu recently, and they were talking about shamanic healers, were talking about Bigfoot. And I said, I wonder if they've ever had any Bigfoot sightings around the Berkshires. Sure enough, there's Bigfoot, and it's linked to the UFOs and the First Nations people again, and they're sacred. And there's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings up at October Mountain, and I never knew that before. So that too is linked to the First Nations people. And if you think about it, the First Nations people, if you go, I've done a lot of traveling before in Belize and in Mexico. And if you go to the Mayan ruins, you'll see that they will have pictures of like UFOs or little statues that look like little men that come from outer space. Have you traveled to the Mayan ruins?
I've never been myself. I've watched a lot of Ancient Aliens. I'm
So
a big Ancient Aliens fan.
So
I think well, see, here's my problem with Ancient Aliens and with stuff like that. I think that there is a very distinct possibility that there was a civilization long before ours that had technology more advanced than ours, and that civilization fell and history was forgotten, and now we don't remember. We're it's like Graham Hancock says. He's a British author. He says we're a species with amnesia because we don't remember our past. So I don't know if those depictions in like the Mayan ruins or in like in Egypt or whatever, I don't know if that is of aliens or if that is of people with technology here on Earth from a different time.
I think
And
it's a combination. I really do.
Right. I personally don't know. I think we're naive to think that we live in a universe this insanely large and that we're the only things in it. Like that is so
Impossible.
egotistical. Like
Yep,
that's
you're
like
absolutely right.
like I'm so full of myself. This is it. No, you idiot. Like the universe is so vast. So no, I believe there's things out there. My issue with things at this point, I don't know what it is that we're seeing. I don't know if and this is me going down a rabbit hole for a minute here, Melanie. So
That's
so
fine.
don't mind me.
No, that's
I
fine.
don't know if these are aliens or if these are humans from the future.
I agree with you. And Tom and I question it all the time.
Yeah,
That's
see,
why we're
that's
doing our research.
that's looks like we lost Katie. She said she might pop in and out tonight. Yeah, I have wondered for a while now because I was a huge, or I still am, even though I think that the show is a little it goes the alien route far too quickly every time. Because that's what the show's designed to do. But I've been at odds with this for a while where I don't know what it is. And could it be that? Could it have been time travelers? But then again, I think of it that way too. Like if there were time travelers, would we at this point would we know it?
Well, they
I don't
talk
know.
about wormholes and portals and all of this. We don't know.
It's crazy. So, and one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite horrible B movies that I love to watch every once in a while is Millennium. And it's this movie about time travelers from the future, from a future where we're dying. They come back in time and they get onto crashing airplanes where everyone on the airplane dies. and they take all of the people and replace them with the bodies of other people.
Wow.
And then they take those people into the future to help propagate the race so that no one's missing from this time. And it was a really unique concept to me. I was like, that's friggin' brilliant. Like, you know, they're taking people and they're not like, you know, they're not affecting this time at all. But yet, you know, people would screw up and interact with other people, which, you know, in turn would make, you know, mistakes in the timeline or whatever. But it's one of those movies that I really like. And it makes me wonder. But I'm totally open to the idea of aliens.
Same
I mean,
here.
I think that the more they send those probes up to Mars, they're gonna find microbes on Mars. Like, and when they do, you know, people are gonna have to accept the fact that there's more than just us.
Of
Like,
course.
because look at how many planets there are in the known universe. The known universe.
Well, it's ignorant to say that we're the only ones, but is the government not involved with it?
Oh,
And
well,
don't
look,
forget,
well,
we had MK Ultra going on back then in the 1960s. There was so much going on, and we had a lot of family members were working for all of these places, so you weren't supposed to talk about it. There were
Right.
a lot of people in all of our families that were working for these places. So many people.
That's very interesting right there,
Mhm.
because if they were working for that and then you're having experiences at the same time.
Lockheed Martin, I mean, all
Yeah.
of these different places, you had people from families working at these
So
places.
Melanie, what do you think about all of this stuff that's been coming out very recently, like the the Tic Tac UFO video that was released by the Pentagon? What was the other one there? The gimbal video came out with the Tic Tac video. I think it's called the gimbal video.
The
And
black
then
and white one that they
yeah,
show.
and then more recently, which we just did a story on this one on the show, an airline pilot saw this cylindrical object fly over his plane while in flight, and he was like hollering at air traffic control saying, "Hey, do you have anything up here?" And, you know, of course they were like, "No, we don't." And like the FBI confirmed this whole thing, which
That's
Steve and
weird
I
in
were
itself.
kind of like, that's strange that the FBI is getting in on aerial phenomenon. Because that just happened like a few weeks ago.
I think that they're finally having to admit that it's going on. They can't keep it covered up anymore because of social media. They just can't keep doing it because people are talking about it more and more.
Yeah.
They just cannot keep it quiet anymore.
Now, do you think that, because here's something that we run into a lot. People who are completely full of shit. Now, Steve and I don't see you as one of those people that we find is completely full of shit, obviously.
I have no reason to lie about it because
Right. No, but what I'm
I'm
getting
told
at
to
is,
lie about it for my whole life, and
but
it was just
I'm trying to get to a point. Like, what do you think about people who just make this shit up?
I think that they probably do it to make money off of it. They want to write books, or they are hoping to score a television show or to score a movie.
Which is our thought completely.
That's why they're doing it. Whereas,
Or just for attention, you know, just
yeah, it's for
attention.
attention.
But because you've actually had an experience and because it's been, I would say your experience is traumatic, not just because of the experience itself, but because of what happened with your family. That's why I wanted to ask you, like, how does it make you feel when you see somebody going out there and just making horseshit claims about something, or does it even bother you at all?
Well, I think it's hurtful when people have said, "Oh, she must have been really high on drugs," And I've said, no, actually,
Yeah.
I wasn't high on drugs. I was 12 years old and I worked that whole weekend. My sister and I, we smoked cigarettes back then, but I wasn't smoking pot that day. I was smoking cigarettes because back then you did smoke at a young age. It was totally
Oh, yeah.
acceptable back then. We had a smoking lounge at school. Nobody thought it was bad for you back then. For 35 cents, you could buy a pack of cigarettes. Was not a bad thing. But I really think it's a moneymaker for some people. But for me, I don't want to make money off of it. I've been offered to do things for money for it, and I refuse to accept to make money off of it because I don't want it to be a moneymaker for me. This is a healing experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have been lied to about it for so long. In fact, I've spent money. I spent money to go to therapy for it. I put money out for
Yeah,
I
this.
think, if you're making money off an event like that, eventually you start embellishing and you start, because you got to keep the story going. And I'm not saying it's wrong to make Travis Walton. I believe, his story too. And he makes money off the event. I mean, it's not wrong, but for some people, it becomes the money. And I'm glad that you're not, because that's just it makes it all the more real to me, or all the more truthful to me. And I like that. So
yeah,
I have no intention of doing that.
I'm glad.
If I'm 80 years old and my kids, say to me, "Why don't you do a book or something?" I would say, okay, if somebody wants, first of all, I'm not a writer either. If somebody wanted to do that, I would say, okay, I'll tell you my story and you can write the book, but you have to donate the money to like an animal group or some group. I wouldn't keep any money because this to me is not about making money. It never has been and it never will be for me.
I think
Yeah,
it cheapens the event. I think it cheapens it too, once you start making money off of it. Yeah. And then you'll get, I mean, people already, I'm sure there's people that, harass you and don't believe you and, give you a hard time about it already. But can you imagine what you'd have to go through if you were, making a bank off of this?
That's why I respect Tom Reed, because all of his money he's invested to his park. He's put it all into that park for people like me to have a place to go to meditate and to feel at peace, because nobody believed people when this has happened to. So all of his money is for the upkeep of that park. My husband and my husband built a beautiful picnic table for there. I don't know if Tom told you about it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and so my husband donated a picnic table for the park. It's a beautiful place to go and paint pictures and do things. All of his money he puts into that park, which I respect Tom for that. So if anybody gives him any money or donates money, it automatically goes into the park.
Right.
That's admirable for sure. I mean, that just, because we've listened to your stories and that just makes it all the more real. There's no motivation behind it, monetary motivation.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Tom's story too. And I kind of like. I know that his mom was on the TV show.
She's a sweet woman.
Yeah, but he said something about how she was kind of upset about how it had gone down or whatever, and that she doesn't like to talk about it because of it or whatever. I don't want to misquote him, but
she was
I know
really hurt because her husband died when he went to the United Nations, and he gave all this information out, and she did not want to have to travel up to meet with them. I think they met her in Georgia, I believe it was Georgia or Virginia. She came up from Tennessee, and it was a long haul for her. She had just had surgery, but she agreed to do it, and they promised her that they would put all the information as to what happened, and then they didn't do it. They cut a lot of it out, and they put other information that was not as important in, and that was very important to her because it was her husband. He lost his life,
right,
and that was left out. There was a lot of good information that was left out.
And I know that was really important to Tom too. He had mentioned it to me, and he had brought it up on the show. So, yeah, And it's hard when it hits home like that. When something like that hits home, I mean, obviously you're going to take it extremely personally.
And I don't blame him. I really don't blame him. And he had a monument that was taken, and nobody has told him where the monument was gone, taken to. So he's still working on that. And then just lately, the park has been vandalized. Somebody put graffiti all over some of the stones, and he had a light stolen. He's put a lot of work into that park. And why would somebody want to do something like that? It's just cruel.
Oh, it happens all the time, though. Happens all the time. People suck, Melanie.
They
Like,
do.
there's always a portion of people that just suck.
And he's done it just to help us and to be nice
Yeah.
to the community. And then people go and do mean things like that.
I don't think I'll ever understand it.
There's always a vast majority of people who don't suck. However,
right, correct.
Those ones that do that, always ruin it for the rest of us. Always.
Well, I think sometimes they point out how we let things happen. I think that's the bigger thing. The people that suck make us realize that that a lot of us give them a pass.
Oh yeah.
We're
enablers.
Yeah.
We're enablers.
And I think we wind up pointing our finger back at ourselves a lot with that stuff.
It's a family member, it's a friend, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that, Melanie. I mean, I know Tom does put a lot into that, and he's really passionate about it. He just sent me one of the TV shows. Were you on that one? I think it was the Travel Channel.
No, he did that one before he and I started to partner up together.
Okay.
It was in May that he did that one.
Yeah, he sent me that to watch. I still haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it, but I do intend to sit down and watch that. And
it's a really good one.
And I am going to sit down and talk with him too. But that does suck that people can't even that they can't friggin' leave shit alone. Just leave the damn park alone.
I agree. They should be happy to have it in the community.
So, did you ever make up with your family over this, or? I know you said you're close with your sister.
I are really, really close. Janie and I are very, very close. But no, I was really hurt by what had happened.
Right.
The whole situation. In fact, Janie's not even very close with my parents right now either.
So how long? So, if you don't mind me asking, how long has it been since you've spoken to your parents?
Probably 2 or 3 years. 3 years. Yeah, 3 years now since this whole thing happened. Yeah.
That's super unfortunate because family's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just that bothers that part of your story. It bothers me more than anything. Because I've had to deal. My children today were fighting, and when they fight, and that bothers the hell out of me when families don't get along because you only get one. You know what I mean?
Well, this is nothing new though, because I was always a scapegoat anyways in the family. So
yeah, and I've been there myself. I catch that end of things, not as much as probably my older sister, but similar. And we were always the black sheep too, so I understand that. But it's maybe that's what made me more family oriented because
that's what Janie always says about me too. She always says, "Well, Melanie, look at it made you a stronger person."
Mm-hmm. Well, and shit, man, you had to deal with some shit just going through this incident, and I mean, and you can now talk about it openly, and that's awesome.
That's the other thing that because I didn't really want to dig into it too much in the beginning, but because we did talk about it in the other show. But
you can ask me whatever you'd like.
So what is it that exactly happened to you? And I'm not talking about the stuff that happened maybe before. I'm talking about the event, like the actual event.
The 69 event?
Right. What happened that day?
I'll tell you what I can remember that happened. I told you that I ended up going, when my mother called me to go to the Historical Society, I said to her, before I can do anything, because you told me that it didn't happen, even though I knew that it happened, I had been talking about this to my husband, to my really close friends, and to my sister, because Janie and I grew up always talking about it. And Henry, my husband, I've always talked to him about it. And I had experience here in the 90s. I had an experience. So they'd always known about it. And then when she called me and I told him what happened, I said, before I go to the Historical Society, I have to go and have hypnotism so that I can really remember what happened. So I went for like, I think 8 to 10 weeks. And before you can even be hypnotized, you have to be prepared for what you're going to see. It's not a one-time thing. So I went to a PTSD specialist that works with police officers and people that are, coming back from war, soldiers. And I had to go, I think it was for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks before he would even go there, before he would even hypnotize me to see if I was ready for it. And then he started with the hypnosis and everything started coming back to me, what I could remember. And Henry, my husband, he wanted to videotape it so that he could play it back to me. It was very disturbing for me to watch it. And then I couldn't continue with it because I found it very disturbing. So what I remember is, I can tell you what I do remember. And I remember my sister and I can remember the posters too. We worked at the Mahawi Theater, and I can remember the posters at the theater. It was the Goldie Hawn poster that was Cactus Flower, and that was playing that weekend. And there's another one. It'll come back to me before I finish telling you the story, because I remember it comes and goes. These things come and go. I'll be laying in bed and then they'll just come. And my sister's like, I can't believe you remember that. And I said, it's because of hypnosis. Songs that we used to sing, like that song Thumbelina, she'd be like, I can't believe that you can remember that song. But anyways, we just wanted to go smoke cigarettes after cleaning the theater. So we were going to meet a friend at Penny Rock, and my mother saw us coming up out of the tunnel from the main street. And she's like, no, get in the car. You're coming with us. We're going to go for ice cream. We're like, no, we don't want to go for ice cream, because you didn't want to hang out with your parents.
Right.
Back then, 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds, we weren't like the 12-year-old and 14-year-olds are today. We were much more mature. We had to pay for board. You paid your rent, like board, you worked.
Right.
And we're like, no, we're not getting in the car. She's like, you're getting in the car. Get in the car. So we had to get in the car and go. And we went and got our ice cream. Then we went up to the lake. My father was backing in. And all of a sudden, there was like this big orange, red, like bronze, amber glow. It was huge. It took up the whole lake. It was giant. And my father goes, holy shit. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, I want to follow it. We got to follow it. And I'm like, no, Dad, no, don't. I knew it was coming for me, because it came all the time and they never believed me. And my sister and I, we were screaming. And I remember the smell and I asked my mother, I said, why did I smell wool? What was the wool? I could smell wool.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And she's there, that's because your father had an army blanket in the back of the car. And Janie and I had put our heads on the back seat and we were screaming and crying. And that's the last thing I can remember in in the car before he took off to try and follow it. And then I can remember being levitated. And all I can remember is you can't move. You can't move your head, but you can move your eyes. And I remember being on the street, because I can remember the houses that were there, like the peaks of the houses that were there. And it was on Berkshire Heights, because where we were, I could walk to those places because our house was not far. People will say, how is it that she could have walked home after they left her at the lake? We used to walk there all the time. It was not that far.
Right.
It was close by. And Berkshire Heights is right around there. It's close by too. But I remember being levitated there. And that's the last thing I remember after smelling that wool blanket. And then from there, I remember being on a table someplace. And like Tom says, we don't know if it was a spaceship or we don't know if it was a hangar or what it was. We have no idea, but I do know that it was a table, and it was like almost like, you know, those glass bricks, those 1960 style glass bricks. It was like a metallic type room with those glass bricks, but it was metallic glass. And there was like this red, same amber glow going around it. And the only noise I could hear, it seemed like it was in my head, and it was this clicking noise, almost like being in an MRI. Have you ever had an MRI?
No.
Well, it's
I have, yeah.
You know that clicking sound of an MRI?
Annoying as hell, but yeah.
Clicking sound. And you know, that still happens to me at nighttime. As soon as I lay down, not every night, but I would say a good portion, I would say at least 3 times out of the week, 3 to 4 times out of the week, it starts up again. As soon as I lay down at night, it'll start up again in my ears. I say, oh, here I go again. I don't know what happened, but it will start up again. It's really weird. It drives me crazy because I'm an insomniac now. And it's very hard. I have to sleep sitting up because I'm so afraid still. So I sleep with pillows sitting up with my 2 dogs, my 2 young dogs, because my old one can't get on my bed. And from there, I don't know what they did to me. I have no idea who it was, what they did. And from there, I remember being in a room with a group of kids. I didn't know these kids. Tom Warner said that he saw me and he knew me, but I didn't know Tom Warner. So
Right.
I didn't see him. But they were kids. They were young children to maybe 17 or 18. And I was so scared. I just remember crouching. I remember what I was wearing. I was barefoot. I had cut off jean shorts on and like a lime green shirt with short sleeve. It was sweatshirt. I can still remember that because it was my favorite sweatshirt that I used to wear all the time. And then the kids, they would just disappear one by one by one. And then I woke up and it was it was like right before the sun starts coming up on Lake Mansfield on the beach. And I had horrible, horrible stomach pains. But this used to happen to me all the time after that little gray man would leave. And my dad used to take me to the doctors all the time in Housatonic. All the time he would bring me to the doctors in Housatonic because of stomach pains. It was always my dad that would bring me. And so I had to walk home on the dirt road to get home. My parents were nowhere to be found. They were at home, but they weren't at the lake. I'm like, where is everybody? They were home sleeping, and my mom always locked the door. She still does to this day, but the back door was unlocked that day. And they were all in bed sleeping, but my sister was awake, and I climbed in bed with her, and she hugged me. And we talked about it, and then we were told never to talk about it again. That was the last time it was ever talked about. It did come up. I mean, the WSBS talked about it. People talked about it, but it was swamp gas or it was a shooting star. And we were told, don't talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about this. And that's why when my mother called me, I said, but you always told Janie and I that was a shooting star and it was in our head. Don't talk about it. And I remember WSBS clearly saying that it was swamp gas.
Well, that was the explanation back in those days, J.
Mhm.
Allen Hynek
It's
came
a
up with
weather
it.
balloon, Melanie.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing weather balloon as well.
The thing that fascinates me about your story is less of the UFO incident and the little gray men and the fact that you got locked in the basement, number one, and that they left you there on the beach and didn't report a missing child.
Well,
That's
we don't
that.
know what happened to
And then they
them.
went to
That's the
sleep.
weird thing. My mother
that's
said to
true.
Janie, "Do you remember H? Do you remember how we got home?" And Janie said, "No, we don't. They don't even remember how they got home." And Janie said, "It's weird, Mom, because sometimes I can remember that little gray man." She said that she remembers the little gray man looking almost like a leprechaun. And she said it was almost as if it would be like fairy dust being sprinkled on her where she'd fall asleep. She would be put to sleep. So she said, how do we know that they didn't just put us all to sleep or something?
Right.
And then she talks about a time in Connecticut. She goes, don't you remember that time in Connecticut when we were driving home? And I don't remember that time at all. So I don't know if my sister had experiences, but she just doesn't remember as well and doesn't want to remember.
Right.
But I remember one time, well, she tells me that she saw that little man in a tree, but she describes it looking different. And I remember also seeing the little man in the daytime, and he was in the trunk sitting in the tree, but it was in the trunk of the tree on the ground calling me over. And this is not an imaginary thing. But I'm telling you, my mother also would tell me a story for years and years and years. And I was thinking that she was just doing it to make me feel bad. But now I'm thinking maybe this started happening to me when I was 2. She used to tell me the story about how she sent me to my room when I was 2 years old because I was being mischievous and I was too quiet. So she went to check on me. And she said I had a clothespin wrapped up with cloth and I had a pin and I was sticking it like a voodoo doll. And there's no way in 1959 that I would have watched television because in 1959, we did not have the kind of television that would be talking about voodoo. And a 2-year-old would not know anything about voodoo. So something had to have been going on back then because she said, I looked at her and I said, she goes, what are you doing? And I said, I made a doll and this is you. And you're hurting me. So I'm going to hurt you like you're hurting me right now. This is you. And she said, you made a voodoo doll and you were hurting me. And I didn't say it was a voodoo doll, but I said, I want to hurt you like you're hurting me. So where did I learn that from? I'm not saying it was voodoo, but is it because somebody was probing me or poking me with things? Is that where I learned it at 2? It's pretty creepy, don't you think? Or did she just say that to make me feel bad?
Well, I think your whole story is rather odd.
I mean, I never thought of that before.
I
I
think
never
that to
put it
grow
together.
up in a family like you grew up in, I mean, I don't know all of the particulars, but based on what I do know with this story, I find it to be a very broken home.
You think?
Yeah. Well,
Well, that's
I mean, that's
story
my
I'm having
first.
a hard time with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my initial reaction to it, and I don't like to instantly judge people. I don't want to judge your parents based on this one thing. I have not heard their side of anything. Be that as it may, I do believe your side of the story, and I don't believe that you have any reason to lie to me. And this is one of those stories that I'm just really blown away by. I can't understand how, for one, how it eluded me and Steve of all people. And now that we know about it, I'm just every little facet of it. I'm really I'm blown away by it. Like the fact that you said you were levitated down the street. Like I'm beginning to wonder at this point if if the whole town wasn't in some way affected by this thing, because I don't think that something on this size can happen without a whole town of people being controlled or involved or manipulated in some way.
I agree. And do you know that my cousin, she listened to a podcast. Well, she was married to my cousin, this woman that I know. I love her. I call her my cousin because she was married to my cousin, and I've known her since she was a child. She listened to a podcast I did, and she heard me talking about this dream, a reoccurring dream that I have, but I know that it's real, that it took place, where I'm being levitated down the Housatonic River, and I can see Melvin's drugstore, the pharmacy. And I know that it happened. It's not a dream. It really took place.
Right.
And I still have the same dream. It still happens all the time. And it happens from the house that I lived in where the little gray man came. And you go right down the Housatonic River, and the pharmacy, you can't move your head, and you can see though with your eyes. And my cousin said to me, I couldn't believe it when you said that. I have the same exact dream. And I don't think I get goosebumps. I just got goosebumps. She
That
said,
just gave me goosebumps.
I don't think it was a dream now, Melanie, either. I think it happened to me too.
So
And
Melanie,
go on. No, you go on.
No, the thing is, we are very skeptical people. We usually trash stories like yours, but there's something about you and this whole story and the corroboration behind it too. The other witnesses, and how do we ignore that? How do we can't?
Well, we did for too many years, and there's too many people that are coming forward. I had a guy that called me from California after Netflix, and he had no way of knowing about Berkshire Heights because it was left on the cutting room floor. And I didn't tell him. His sister called me, and then I called him up because she told me that he's been troubled his whole life. He became an addict, and all these troubled things happened to him. And Melanie, would you please call him and talk to him? And I called him up, and then he started telling me that he got attacked up on Berkshire Heights. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. And I never even told him the story about me levitating up on Berkshire Heights.
It's
too.
I find this is fascinating
to me.
Do you feel now?
He couldn't have known it.
Do you feel now, though, better about everything since you are now able to talk about it openly? I mean, that's got to be a weight off your shoulders.
It's definitely a weight off of my shoulders. It's something that I have to continue to research. Before I knew that it could be UFO phenomena, I thought that, like I said, I thought it could be paranormal because of the First Nations people. I thought it could be the little people because they had the little people that were the helpers. So I thought it could be that. I even went out to South Dakota to research it with the First Nations people. I spent time doing that. So this is something that I have been looking into my whole life because I knew something had happened, and I had been denied it through my family. So before I had been told by my mother, you have to go to the Historical Society, I still continued to look into it, even though she had lied to me. But I went another route, which was the paranormal route before. So she just confirmed it for me that, yeah, something did happen. We saw a UFO.
That's also got to be, that's got to also be a relief because, you finally, they've been telling you for years that you're just making this up. And then finally, even though I know that it's caused some stress between you and your family, it's at least got to be some sort of relief to have that, admission.
yet she'd tell me about the voodoo doll. She'd tell me that she'd find me sleepwalking, and then I would just say, hi. I mean, clearly they had just dropped me off, and that's why I'm sleepwalking in the house.
So I don't know, Melanie, if I told you about my mother's story. She's very similar to yours, except she didn't feel like she was abducted or anything, but she had a sighting. But her family did the same thing to her for years. They didn't, you're just making this up. You're just making this up. My grandfather would never talk about it. It was the whole family in the car. My Uncle John still denies it. My Uncle Ray denied it for years and years and years, and told my mom she was crazy. Finally, and I know why he denied it. He works for the government. He was FBI and Homeland Security and all that stuff. Eventually, finally he corroborated her story with her. So I mean, she felt so good about it at that point. But so I have maybe that's the attachment I have to your story, is that my mother went through something very similar. Maybe not to the extent she didn't get locked in basements and things like that, but she was always the black sheep of that family too. And yeah, so I feel an attachment to your story because of that, I think. And you have the same kind of hair my mother does. Very similar hair.
Our armchair quarterback in the chat tonight, we like to call him Fuck Dean Cooper, Melanie.
Yes.
His name is Dean Cooper. We call him Fuck Dean Cooper. Here's his armchair quarterback comment of the night. I think she was unwittingly astral projecting, probably under the control of the Fae.
Not sure what a Fae is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either. So
Thanks, Dean. I'm glad you could weigh in on that one.
Dean says he has some experience.
We're talking about UFOs or maybe the government, not the Fae. Dean, calm yourself.
What if he's right though?
How about he tell me the fucking gender of my bird? How about that? How about he tell me if my bird is male or fucking female? I don't give a shit about fairies. Tell me if that bird that's out in the other room because it squawks when I do a show is either a male or a female. And tell me without looking at a picture of it, you prick, because I want to know how good you are, Dean. I want to know how fucking good you are. What's my bird? If you say some fucking cisgender fucking, just tell me boy or girl.
We have fun with Dean.
Yeah. Dean's a good.
And he's like, what the hell just happened here?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I feel the same way as Steve about your story. I think that it's heartbreaking. Like it's very, very heartbreaking that your family covered this up and made you feel like it didn't happen, that this thing that you felt and knew happened to you, that they made you feel like it didn't happen. To me, it's very, very heartbreaking. And I feel for you. I, as with anyone, would wish that, in some way that you could make up with your parents. That they could figure out how to be the proper parents. Because I think anyone who's a parent that does something like that to their child, they're the ones that's in the wrong. And they're the ones that need to make amends ultimately. But I hope in some way you can figure that out.
I've
at
made
some
peace
point
with myself, though, that it's okay now to let it go.
Yeah,
For
no,
me,
listen, I
okay.
have a sister that I don't speak to. And a long time ago, all I did was send her a message that said, hey, I forgive you, but I don't want anything to do with you.
That's what you have to do. You have to move
so
on.
I can totally understand that. But at the same time, because there's a big part of me that has always wished that that I could have a relationship with my sister, but I know that it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just not, we're never going to see eye to eye. So it's fine. It's okay. So I get that. Frank Smith, Dean says it's a girl. All right. We'll see, Dean. We'll see how good you are. Frank Smith, what kind of bird is it? It's a fucking parakeet. It's a budgie. And Swamp Girl says the bird is a male. So one male, one female. We got one vote each. One vote each. I don't know. Just tell me what my bird is. Sometimes it's an asshole. I can tell you that. But it does like me. Likes to hang out with me. So, but yeah, this story, Melanie, and I'm really glad that I got a chance to have you come back on the show again.
Thank you for having me back on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I think Steve had to take a call or something. He had to take off, or he's took his camera off. But I'm gonna get this wrapped up. But yeah, thank you very much for coming back on. I like I said, I really appreciate your story and stories like this, where I don't feel like it's someone blowing smoke up my ass, because we see so much of it. Like Steve and I see so much of that, where it's just obvious crap, and it's not, whereas, and I don't know you. However, based on what I know about the story and all the different people and all the corroboration, your story, I believe. And I'm one of those people that's hard to get to believe a story, because I'm very skeptical. And I'll be the first one to say to people, hey, I'm not trying to discount your experience. I'm just a skeptical guy. It takes a lot to convince me. But with your story, because of all the corroboration, all of the other people that were involved in this, all the the different key points in this story, this is I won't say it's a great story. It is a great story. For you, it's probably a shitty story in a lot of ways, but it's a great story. Like the fact that this happened to so many different people and over such a widespread area. And if what you're saying is true too, like this could have been happening to other people over a period of time, even before this and after.
Well, we're finding out more and more people. Like, gosh, every month we find out another person that it's happened to. My husband's out and about way more than myself. He knows so many people that saw something on that night, the same night that it happened to all of us, that particular night. And I'm finding out people that it happened to, around the same time that it was happening to me during that time. Yeah. So like I said, we are not the only ones that it happened to around here.
Yeah,
it happened to a lot of us.
And I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody who's willing to talk about it, because like I said, that's a story that it's definitely got me.
Well, my cousin Jane that lives in Florida, she told me that her mom, before her mom passed away, used to watch the UFOs all the time over Lake Mansfield.
Wow.
They were always over Lake Mansfield. It's always over the body of water. It's always over Lake Mansfield. It's always over the Housatonic River. So many people that live around here have watched them. I have a friend that has photographs of UFOs up on Cherry Hill. She's got some wonderful photographs of UFOs up on Cherry Hill. There's a lot of spottings on Cherry Hill.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what's going to come out in the next few years, based on what we've seen over the last year with the releases from the government. I think that there's more. There's more to be seen on the Berkshires UFO.
It would be. I don't know what the right word would be to use, but it would be wrong for me to say that it's just UFOs, because we don't know if it's just UFOs. We don't really know exactly what was going on, what happened to us. And neither Tom Reed or I ever confirmed that it was a total UFO abduction, because we don't know. And that's why we continue to look into it. And we're not going to stop until we think that we can figure it out. Will we ever figure it out? We don't know.
Right.
We don't, we don't know how long we were gone for. We have no idea. We didn't have a watch on. We're not going to look at our watch and say, well, I was gone for such and such time. We were kids. Right. How are we going to know that?
Yeah, and it is such a strange story that, like I said, I don't think we've heard the last of it, and I'll of course keep in contact with you, Melanie,
I hope so. And I think more people will come forward. And if I can get anyone to come on, I will definitely.
Oh yeah, let me know. I'd be more than willing to talk to anybody. Shadow Mick, thank you, Melanie. I believe you experienced something horrible. Now you can speak. We're here listening. And Swamp Girl, I believe her. Yeah,
Thank you.
I believe Melanie as well, and that's the reason why I really I have
to say it's super strange for us to believe a story like this.
Yes,
because
we don't normally
because we're skeptics.
So
yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but I mean the corroboration for number one, it's just, how do you deny it?
Frank Smith, he's from over in Ireland, Melanie. He says, great show and fantastic guest. I believe you, Melanie.
And by the way, Chris, I did have to take a call. That's why.
Yeah, I thought you did.
A call of nature.
Oh, I figured something happened. So I'm going to wrap this up again. Melanie, thank you for coming on. Like I said, I'll keep in touch with you. Like I said,
Please do.
I have your phone number. So,
I always enjoy them.
So this has been the Fortean Slip, episode 180, the Berkshires UFO Revisited. As always, the show will be up a little bit later on Anchor or wherever you download your podcast. If you want the audio version of this, go check out our good friend Dread Fun. He does all the artwork for our show. He's at youtube.com/dreadfun and dreadfun.com. Go check out our good friend Bronx Johnny. He was on the show last week. We had a good time with him and probably got me banned from Facebook. Go check him out over at High Society Radio. And congratulations to Johnny. He's going to have a new baby soon, and his wife is now home in the United States. Go check out the Facebook page over at facebook.com/the Fortean Slip. And if you haven't yet, check out the Fortean Slip bedtime stories. They are up now as a podcast. I've been reading all kinds of really cool stories. A lot of H.P. Lovecraft. I just read The Color Out of Space, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I liked that a lot. And The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which was totally different from the friggin' movie. So it's amazing reading some of that stuff and knowing what the movies that were made afterwards. So we will be back next week. Katie, did we decide on a topic for next week?
Yeah, I think we're doing the documentary Murder Among Mormons.
Oh yeah, the Murder Among the Mormons.
That sounds exciting.
Have you heard about this, Steve?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory just before we end the show. So in the Mormon church, they're really big into documents.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're really big into documents that prove things about their religion or document like the history of the Mormon religion.
Also big about suppressing documents that disprove them.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the basis of this whole documentary. It's about this guy who was procuring documents for that seemed to prove things about the Mormon church, and how he and 3 other people were hit with pipe bombs. Yeah. So it's an interesting story. So we're going to get into that next week.
Scientology going on there.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's a fun one. So so anywho, we will be back next week with that. And until then, see ya.